For almost 200 years, humanity was quiet, too quiet in the eyes of the galaxy. Their colonies were attacked, their ships were destroyed, and humans were forced into the smallest star systems. Alien empires believed that Earth was fading away, losing strength, and preparing to surrender. But Earth was not weak. Earth was planning. Across the dark side of the moon, hidden inside an artificial crater that was invisible to outside scanners, engineers and scientists worked on the largest military project in human history. It had no name at first. It was not built for publicity. It was built out of desperation. It was built because humanity had lost too much. The galaxy saw the silence as fear. Humanity saw the silence as focus. Inside that hidden facility, over 80,000 workers lived in isolation. None of them were allowed to leave until the project was finished. Their families thought they had died. Their names were erased from civilian records. They accepted this because they believed the future of mankind depended on what they were doing. Every day, machines drilled into the metal layer of the structure. Sparks fell like artificial rain. Steel frames were welded, and new alloy plates were tested. The design was something no alien empire could understand. It was not just technology. It was pure physics, a weapon that ignored distance, ignored shields, and ignored armor. Humanity was building a railgun, so large that its barrel stretched across an entire orbital platform. A projectile fired from it would not explode. There would be no radiation. No tracked missile flight. No interception. Just raw impact. A piece of metal moving so fast that it did not hit a surface, it erased it. The scientists used words like hypervelocity penetration, thermal shock, and mass acceleration, but the soldiers only called it one thing. The silence maker. Commander Arden was one of the few people with clearance enough to see the final blueprint. He stood inside a transparent control deck, watching the railgun chamber being assembled far below him. It reminded him of an ancient cathedral, tall, wide, full of power, silent but threatening. This weapon was not designed in a day, nor a decade. It was the result of centuries of research, trials, and absolute loss. When humanity lost the Kepler colonies, the designs began. When they lost the Europa fleet, production began. When millions disappeared in the Orion conflict, the weapon was finalized. Grief turned into calculation. Calculation turned into machinery. Machinery turned into a weapon. One day, the silence broke. A signal was transmitted through secure channels. The railgun was ready. There was no cheering. No celebration. Not a single person smiled. They simply stood and waited. The activation sequence began with a low humming sound. The entire platform vibrated, as if a sleeping giant was stretching for the first time. Magnetic coils lit up one by one. Blue sparks raced down the length of the weapon. Artificial gravity fields expanded, stabilizing the weapon's alignment. Power levels rose higher. 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 A warning echoed through the facility. Energy threshold complete. Rail loading initiated. A metal rod of compressed tungsten slid into the firing chamber. It was only 3 meters long, small compared to the weapon itself, but inside that rod was potential energy greater than everything humanity had fired in 1,000 years. Arden looked at the rod. He knew once it launched, there would be no returning to negotiation tables, no more peaceful attempts, and no more silence. Far across the galaxy, alien networks began detecting strange distortions near Earth. Their satellites registered magnetic disturbances. Their energy maps showed a spike larger than anything previously recorded. But they laughed. They believed humans lacked the courage to use anything truly dangerous. They believed humans were always predictable. Inside the facility, countdown windows opened. T-10 minutes. 3,000 engineers took their positions. Ships around the facility moved back, clearing space. No one spoke. No one moved. No one breathed loudly. This was not a weapon test. This was a warning shot to the galaxy. When the countdown passed 5 minutes, communication links opened. Human fleets beyond the solar border received the firing signal. Colony defense stations locked into standby mode. Civilian networks began broadcasting scrambled messages, unaware of what was about to happen. Arden whispered to himself, not in anger, not in revenge, but in final acceptance. One shot is enough. The railgun core stabilized. Space around it distorted. Even light seemed slower. The world waited. The galaxy waited. And humanity prepared for the moment where silence would end. This was the weapon built across centuries. A weapon created not for punishment, but to make the galaxy finally listen. The countdown finished, not with an explosion, not with sound, but with a flash, so intense that it turned space white for a fraction of a second. The firing signal did not echo like thunder. It simply existed. One moment the tungsten projectile waited inside the chamber, and the next moment it was gone, already thousands of kilometers away. There was no flame. There was no rumble. There was only speed. The projectile tore through the vacuum of space at a velocity faster than standard sensor calibration could register. Every scanning unit in every alien observatory malfunctioned for a full minute. Their systems did not know whether an object had moved or a star had died. On human screens, a thin red line traced across the holographic map. A simple inscription glowed beneath it. Trajectory confirmed. Destination, Throne World Alaris. The galaxy did not even understand what that meant yet. At the same time, deep inside the imperial palace of Alaris, alien diplomats were making speeches. Golden pillars stood tall, banners of victory and dominance stretched across the grand chambers, and thousands of elite guards stood with crystal armor reflecting violet hues. They felt safe. They believed nothing could reach them. Their capital planet had 17 planetary shields layered over one another. Their defense rings stretched like halos in orbit, armed with plasma cannons powerful enough to destroy fleets. Their elders said no weapon existed that could breach their sacred walls. That belief shattered exactly 92 seconds after the railgun fired. The palace sky suddenly glowed bright orange, like sunrise breaking too early. At first, no one understood it. People pointed upward with confusion. Then the scanning servers below the palace began screaming alerts. Object entering atmosphere. Unknown heat signature. Shield compression exceeding rate. The defense generals rose from their seats. They activated planetary shield protocols. A giant dome of violet light shimmered across the sky. Citizens cheered. They trusted the shields. But the projectile did not slow down. It hit the first shield layer and passed through it like a knife touching paper. The shield blinked out. People gasped. Generals shouted orders to recharge. Before they could finish speaking, the projectile passed through the second, third, and fourth shield, each breaking instantly. 17 shields became 0. And that was before it even reached the palace. Sensors could not compute the impact because there was no impact yet. The object was still moving, burning, blazing through physical laws. It struck the top of the citadel with a soundless burst. Not like an explosion, more like a hole opening in reality. The projectile did not stop. It continued downward. It passed through stone. It passed through titanium foundations. It passed through the royal vault. It came out through the bottom of the planet, exiting the crust and continuing into space again with leftover velocity. Inside the palace, silence swallowed everything. Walls collapsed. Floors split. Golden statues shattered like dust. The throne itself cracked down the middle, not brittle, not damaged, but divided as if by judgment. Millions watched from across their city. They stared in disbelief at the straight tunnel of burning air that traveled through their most sacred monument. No radiation. No explosion. Just a perfect line of destruction. Across the galaxy, live broadcasts froze mid-transmission. Network signals failed. Data streams halted. Satellite feeds looped images again and again, unable to interpret what they had recorded. Even planets that were enemies to Alaris fell silent. Inside human command networks, calculations continued calmly. Arden looked at the screen. Status, projectile exit confirmed. No celebration. No music. No applause. Just acknowledgement. The galaxy finally understood that humanity had not fired a weapon. Humanity had shown capability. The alien empires immediately entered emergency council. Armies repositioned attack fleets. Nobles ordered evacuation of throne families. Shield scientists trembled because nothing they had ever built had failed so instantly. The council demanded to know why Earth did this. Humanity sent a message. Only one sentence. We will not be hunted again. Those words echoed farther than the projectile had traveled. The throne had fallen. The galaxy no longer felt immortal. And what began as a single shot had already rewritten galactic prophecy. Humanity had spoken, without a voice. Without flames. Without war drums. Just one impossible acceleration. One moment that split history into before and after. The shot was over, but its consequences were only beginning. Not a single human ship moved. Not a single human broadcast followed. Humanity stayed silent. And silence frightened the galaxy more than any weapon. Across the Council Nebula, more than 50 members of different alien species gathered in a newly secured chamber. The walls were lined with signal dampeners, as if they feared that Earth could somehow listen. Representatives wore expressions of shock, disbelief, and trembling confusion. A holographic replay looped again and again. The projectile entering Alaris, passing straight downward, then exiting the opposite side of the planet. Someone whispered. That was not war. That was demonstration. Another replied. If they fired a second shot, our colonies would vanish. The scholars of the galaxy, those who believed they understood physics, sat hunched over data logs, trying to interpret the impossible. Their formulas failed. Their theories broke. The numbers were too large, too precise, too smooth. The most respected physicist of the Orion domain finally spoke. It did not explode because an explosion is inefficient. The damage they did was intentional. The room froze. If humanity had wanted destruction, they could have fired mass projectiles into planetary cores. Whole civilizations could have collapsed into molten storms. But humanity did not do that. They fired once. They walked away. And they waited. Meanwhile, the alien thrones trembled. The ruler of Alaris sat in a damaged hall, lights flickering, dust still falling from broken ceilings. His golden cloak lay torn. His throne, symbol of his divine authority, was split exactly where his lineage crest was carved. That split meant humiliation, not death. Even his war generals stood still in fear. Because if humans could target a throne, they could target heads next. Across other empires, strange things happened. Fleet commanders who used to mock humans suddenly ordered every warship to avoid Earth's border. Science academies began studying human material science as if it were religion. Politicians announced peace compliance, pretending it was diplomacy, but everyone knew it was surrender wrapped in dignity. Yet Earth spoke nothing. And that terrified them more. Inside the human command facility, there was no rush. No celebrations. No press announcements. Commander Arden stood inside the observation deck while officers pulled data on projectile trajectory, shield integrity decay, and atmospheric compression trails. Everything had occurred precisely as predicted. Arden approved the report with a single word. Noted. A junior officer approached him nervously. Should we broadcast a final warning? Just to clarify the meaning. Arden shook his head. Our silence is the warning. The officer swallowed hard and returned to his console. Humanity finally understood something that they never tried before. Power is loud only when someone doubts it. When it is unquestioned, silence is enough. Soon, small alien governments began sending offers. Trade agreements. Mineral access rights. Transit lanes. Ceremonial apologies. Some even offered military support if Earth desired war against others. This was natural behavior among frightened nations. But Earth did not accept any offers. They simply opened navigation lanes that allowed human colonies to travel safely again. Mining routes previously stolen were reclaimed. Civilian transport was escorted by new human ships, not large warships, but sleek vessels powered by magnetic reactors inspired by the Railgun's technology. Arden observed this growth like a man observing a sunrise. He did not celebrate power, he respected it. When an alien ambassador tried to ask what the projectile was made of, Arden said, "Just metal." The ambassador trembled. Just metal had reduced a civilization to awe. Just metal had rewritten strategy books. Just metal had shattered the throne world's greatest defense system in less than 2 minutes. What would humanity do if they used something greater than metal? The galaxy did not want to find out. Weeks passed, but one thing never changed. Alien fleets did not dare cross into human space. Not even close. Some empires disbanded their invasion divisions altogether, deciding that provoking humanity again would be the same as inviting extinction. And Earth, for the first time in centuries, slept without fear. Children were no longer raised under evacuation sirens. Colonies no longer lived under the shadow of raids. Civilian ships no longer traveled with coded distress signals. Because one shot had done what thousands of negotiations could not. Humans did not conquer worlds. They earned their distance. And quietly, without speeches or banners, the galaxy began rewriting its maps. Not based on territory. Not based on power. But based on what no one wanted to challenge. They marked a border around Earth. Not as weakness. But as respect. And somewhere inside the moon's hidden structure, the railgun remained powered down. Waiting, silent, sleeping. Because humanity did not need to fire again. The universe remembered the first time moved forward, but the galaxy never returned to what it used to be. Peace did not arrive through treaties or promises, it arrived through fear, and stayed through respect. The throne world of Alaris spent months rebuilding the palace foundations. The crater that cut through its center was left untouched. Engineers tried to cover it, but their ruler refused. He said, "Do not repair it. Let every generation see what silence can do." The mark was not just destruction, it was memory. Across neighboring star systems, children whispered stories about Earth as if humans were mythical beasts. Command academies taught military cadets about the event labeled Day of the Silent Shot. Not explosion. Not battle. Just a silent shot. Their textbooks included the same lesson. Do not underestimate the quiet ones. Even old enemies of humanity, who once celebrated human losses, now guarded their own territories differently. War was no longer a possibility, because war with humans meant ending history. Meanwhile on Earth, life changed in small ways first. Shipyards that were abandoned came back to life. Colonies that once lived under threat began expanding again. Refugees who were scattered across unregistered planets returned home. For the first time in over a century, human children looked at star maps not filled with danger zones, but open travel corridors. The fear that lived inside families for generations finally dissolved. But humanity never celebrated outwardly. They did not broadcast victory. They did not march in parades. They did not claim dominance. Instead, the Earth Council placed a single broadcast across interstellar channels. Human borders are closed to invasion. Open to peace. That message became historical. Because every empire responded with the same word. Acknowledged. And acknowledgement was more powerful than surrender. Commander Arden walked along the quiet moon facility, its interior now dimmed. Engineers were no longer running emergency calibrations. Construction workers were gone. The enormous railgun barrels sat motionless, like a relic resting beneath artificial starlight. Arden placed a hand on the cold metal surface. He did not feel pride. He felt responsibility. His second-in-command approached slowly. "Sir, do you think they will ever try again?" Arden answered without turning. "No. Not while this exists." The officer looked at the weapon. "Should we lock it down permanently?" Arden's voice remained calm. "It already is. Because true weapons do not rely on firing. Sometimes they exist simply to remind the world what could happen." Beyond human borders, alien leaders gathered to rewrite agreements. Trade routes shifted. Travel rights were reorganized. Voice channels changed. One empire suggested creating a unified law that prevented planetary invasions of developing civilizations. Another suggested scientific exchange with Earth. A third suggested honoring humanity with a seat on the Grand Council. But humanity refused all political crowns. Arden responded with one sentence. "We are not here to rule. We are here to live." Those words spread faster than any battle news. For the first time in recorded galactic history, other species respected a civilization that refused power. They had seen many conquerors. They had seen many treaties. But never before had they seen a species that destroyed nothing, yet changed everything. Humanity gained influence not through victory, but restraint. 10 years later, that tunnel through the Alaris Palace still remained. The ruins around it were rebuilt intentionally into a memorial courtyard. Citizens walked there silently, leaving metal tokens shaped like railgun casings. Each token held a name, someone who died long before the shot was fired. Someone lost during invasions, massacres, colony disappearances. It became a ritual of remembrance. Not fear. Not humiliation. Memory. The galaxy understood something. Humans did not fire to dominate. They fired because no other choice was left. And after they fired once, they had the power to do more. But chose not to. That restraint became legend. That restraint became respect. And that respect became peace. Across the stars, civilizations operated under a quiet truth. Humanity will not start war, but they will finish it. That truth never changed. And the galaxy never dared test it again.